Hi, everyone. We're going to take just a couple minutes and while people are getting set up, and we'll be starting in probably about 2 minutes. Thank you for coming. So it looks like everybody is renaming their icon. Thank you so much for doing that. We'd like to know who is present during this meeting. It is a little after 5:30, so I'd like to get started. So welcome to our first outdoor nature-based work group meeting. We very much appreciate your time and feedback as we develop the outdoor nature-based rule set. For transparency purposes, I do want to let everyone know that this work group meeting will be live streamed onto our agency's YouTube channel. However, you're not required to be on camera. Due to live streaming, we're going to be reading any comments that may come in through the chat for people who may be watching this meeting. In order for all of us to kind of get to know who is in this work group right now, if you could all just raise your hand, use your raise hand function. And when your name is called, you'll want to unmute your microphone and provide the following information: your name, the location from where you're Zooming, and what is your connection to the outdoor learning environments. When finished introducing yourself, go ahead and just lower your hand so then we know who has gone and who hasn't. So I'm going to begin. My name is Carol Peterson, and I'm Zooming from Bend right now, and I'm a policy analyst with CCLD, and I'll be the facilitator today for these work group meetings, and this meeting and all future meetings. And I'm also a member of the outdoor nature-based rulemaking team. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Kendall, my co-host. Kendall?
Oh, but I didn't raise my hand. Wait.
That's fine.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Kendall Miyazaki. I use she, her pronouns. I am also a policy analyst with CCLD and DELC, working on the outdoor nature-based rule set project.
And we'll pass it to Ronnie. She is the next DELC person who's involved with this.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ronnie Pham. I'm a child care quality specialist, and I will be taking notes in the background for you today. Thank you.
So Amy, would you like to go?
Sure. My name is Amy, and I'm in McMinnville. And I was a free forest school facilitator for about 4 years pre-pandemic, and then in 2020 opened an outdoor preschool kindergarten here in McMinnville that's still going. And I work with outdoor education adventures. And we also have an outdoor toddler parent program, as well as a host of other outdoor education programs for kids of all ages.
Wonderful. Rachel? Rachel, if you're speaking right now, we can't hear you. We can see you. Nope, can't hear you. So then that's fine. We can go ahead. You can put your introduction into the chat and Kendall will read it. How's that? Okay.
Okay.
So Rhonda, we're going to move to you.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Schock. I'm from Southern Oregon. I'm in Rogue River and Weimer. I have an outdoor preschool that we've had for about 9 years called The Great Outdoors, and it's just a half day, 4-day-a-week program where we're inside and outside.
Great. Great. Well, welcome. Rayanna.
Hi, my name is Rayanna Van Dyne. I'm in LeGrand, and I've always been interested in nature-based education, and now I work at Child Care Resource and Referral, and we have some providers in our area interested in opening outdoor preschool programs, and so I'm just looking forward to ways to support more options for nature-based education.
Great. Welcome. Rebecca.
Hi everyone, I'm joining from Salem, Oregon. I've been working with early childhood for the past 13 years within educational settings. And so I'm joining today to see, to learn more about the outdoor based programs. So thank you.
And Kendall.
My name is Kendall Sweeney. I am the owner and director of Mini Mavericks, and that's here in Bend. We're just a newer recorded program. We're 2 years old, but I've been a preschool teacher for the past 15 years. And so knowing the childcare, like licensing and kind of bridging the gap has kind of been always our goal. And so really excited to be here.
And Mackenzie.
Hi there, my name is Mackenzie Purdom. I own Recess Outdoor Adventure School in Newport. I have toddler, parent, and me type classes. We do a recorded preschool that's 100% outdoors. And we also have an outdoor elementary school that's a private school that's connected to that, and summer camps that we have recorded programs for. I've been in outdoor education for over 20 years and have volunteered with various organizations and worked for various organizations, including like Forest Service and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Hatfield, the aquarium, Yaquina Head. So just a wide variety of outdoor programs, and have been doing recess for about 7 years. Thank you for having me.
Hey, welcome, welcome. So Kendall Miyazaki, did I miss anyone?
I think we had a couple people join in. If you have not introduced yourself, please use the raise hand function in the reactions to raise your hand so you can introduce yourself. But I wanted to take this opportunity to introduce Rachel. They are from Eugene, Oregon. They are an outdoor nature-based early childhood teacher for over 17 years, founder and director of Hazelwood Outdoor Kindergarten. Thank you.
And it looks like Joseph.
Hi, I'm Joseph Flaherty from Cave Junction. I run an outdoor preschool called Art and Science Kids.
Welcome. So did we get everyone? I think we did. Did we get everyone, Kendall? You think?
Did we hear from Sage?
I don't know. I don't think so. Sage?
Sage, I show you are unmuted, but I don't hear you.
Sage, if you would like to drop something into the chat and Kendall can read it, that would be great.
Okay, Sage is a parent who has a child in outdoor education and is looking to improve the circumstances. Thank you, Sage.
Hey. So thank you all. It's always exciting to hear everybody's experience and their connection to these work groups. And so I appreciate you indulging us and introducing yourselves. So I want to quickly go over the agenda for tonight's work group meeting. So we completed the welcome and introductions. We're reviewing the meeting agenda right now. We will be going over some group norms, and those group norms are things that we will go ahead and go over every session just to help ground us in the work a little bit before we get started. I'm going to briefly outline the engagement and rulemaking process, go over the scope format of this work group, and outline how we got to this place right where we're at right now, and the timeline for the outdoor nature-based licensing. Then we will start our discussion topics, and we'll take a quick little 5-minute brain break, and then we'll go ahead and conclude with another set of discussion topics, and then we'll do the closing and next steps. And if at any time you have any questions or need any sort of clarification, please don't hesitate to raise your hand or put it into the chat. Kendall is going to go ahead and be monitoring that. And so we want to hear if something wasn't clear, we want to hear from you. So going over the group norms that we have established is we want to allow opportunities for all voices to be heard. So basically, we want to take space and make space. We want to remain focused on the scope of the work group, be open for a respectful discussion, and have an open mind and ask clarifying questions to confirm your understanding. We want to encourage and honor individual perspectives and truths, and realize that all experiences are valuable and contribute to our shared understanding. Please use the raise hand function or chat for comments, and then practice active listening and listen to understand and give time to reflect before responding. And we also want to seek commonality. We may disagree, which is okay on certain issues, but that will help guide us as we move forward. With that, I also want to open it up and see if there are any other suggestions you would like to add to the list. Please feel free to either drop them in the chat, or if you want to ponder it and come back next meeting, please just let us know and we will definitely add those in. So to kick off, we're going to talk about the engagement and rulemaking process. So we are at one of the first stages of community engagement right now with the work group meeting. The community work group consists of 12 to 15 community members selected through an application process in which you all went through. And the goal of the community work group is to support the development of rule language for specific identified topics. So the next step is the rulemaking advisory committee. And again, that's between 12 to 15 community members, also selected through an application process. And that group will provide feedback on the proposed rule set and be looking at it through a lens of whether or not there are any additional fiscal and equity impacts to the rule, as well as input on whether or not the rule is clearly stated or whether or not it could be revised to be easier to read and understand. That will be taking place late fall, November-ish 2024. And then the rules will be open, the full rule set will be open and available for feedback through public comment, and that's going to be late spring 2025. So we're going to focus on the cycle of feedback, where for this session, we're going to present topics for discussion. We're going to ask for solutions and input for any rule language, and then we'll present rule language and request feedback once we have taken the information back, have presented it to the rulemaking team, and we will go ahead and draft potential language based on that feedback. So specifically with this work group, so as I mentioned before, this is the first stage of engagement where specific topics will be presented and discussed with the work group participants. The feedback received will help support the development of rule language of specific topics. The work group topics will be sent out prior to each meeting, similarly to the initial email that I sent you out last week. That will help introduce you to the topics that will be covered. The work group members will provide feedback or suggestions on where possible changes can be made. And some guiding questions and considerations to keep in mind are, what are the potential impacts for those changes? How would this look in an outdoor environment? And keep in mind that some programs are strictly outside, while some have more of a hybrid where they may use inside and outside. So be thinking in both of those perspectives. And then we just want to make sure that to balance the possible financial impacts, available research on recommended best practice, and available resources. So as discussed on the previous slide, the CCLD will review the feedback received during the workgroup meeting, and based on that feedback, we'll develop proposed rule language incorporating the suggestions when possible. We'll bring the topic back to the next meeting for additional review, and if by chance we do not get through all the information during the meetings, we will discuss the topics that weren't covered at the next meeting. So we're going to really be mindful of the time, but on the off chance we get into a very detailed conversation, we truly want to gain as much knowledge as we can from you folks, because you are the ones that have the knowledge base that we're seeking. We're seeking that knowledge. So and in an attempt to keep within the scope of the work group, if other topics arise, those items are going to be captured in the parking lot, and we will address those at a later time. So how we got here. So in the 2023 legislative session, House Bill 2717 passed, and that requires DELC to create a pathway to licensed childcare programs that primarily serve children in outdoor settings. DELC is currently using Washington State's outdoor nature-based administrative rules as a framework to develop Oregon's draft rule set. The Oregon rulemaking team has met with Washington's outdoor nature-based team, and we discussed their process for development and implementation of the outdoor nature-based rules. So they have been in operation for almost 5 years now, I believe. And so we have been gleaning information and their suggestions from them. And they've been a very good partner with us as we work and move forward with this rule set. They have agreed to continue to serve as a consultant to us. And so that has been super beneficial. We took kind of a unique structure and structured our rulemaking team to include licensing staff and staff who create technical assistance materials for CCLD, as well as policy staff. And by structuring our team this way, it does allow licensing staff to support the implementation of the outdoor nature-based rules through the actual rule development process. And the structure also allows for identifying potential technical assistance documents that will be used by both licensing staff and outdoor nature-based programs to be actually developed prior to the implementation of the rules. So we're kind of trying to front load our work as much as possible so that when the rules are passed and they are in effect, people have the information that they need, both licensing specialists and programs, so that they can immediately start with the licensing process. So the team is also, the rulemaking team is also consulting with other units within DELC, as well as external partners to support the development of the rule set. So the internal DELC units that we've been in consultation with are the Professional Learning Systems unit, and that's addressing training options. And the external partners, we have been in consultation with environmental health and land use, and we're starting with the state fire marshal as well. So we're trying to get all of those pieces in order. So the timeline for the outdoor nature-based childcare licensing, we went ahead and did our recruitment, which, as you know, was open from February to March. We're actively doing the community work group right now. That's going to be from April to June. We're going to start recruiting for the RAC. That's going to begin in late summer. Our Rules Advisory Committee, or the RAC, will take place in November 2024. The rules will be presented to the Early Learning Council for adoption in spring of 2025. And the goal is to have the rules be effective July 1st of 2025. So though we have some time, we don't have a lot of time. Time goes fairly quickly when you're doing this work. So now we're going to start diving into the discussion topics. So yes, Kendall.
I'm sorry, we did have a question in the chat about whether the PowerPoint slides will be available to the work group members after this session. I wasn't sure what the answer to that was.
Sure, we can go ahead and make those available. There were a couple people who could not attend tonight, and they did request the slides as well. So we do want to make sure that we make those available to everyone so that you can kind of be able to review them again, and if something spurs your thoughts after looking at them again, please know that you can always bring thoughts forward later on. So with that, we're going to dive into our first round of discussion topics. So the first, what we are requesting feedback on is how we are defining outdoor nature-based programming. So the proposed draft definition for outdoor nature-based programs, it means an agency or agency-offered program that enrolls only preschool through school-age children, provides childcare to children in a primarily outdoor natural space approved by the department, teaches a nature-based curriculum to enrolled children. An outdoor nature-based childcare may use indoor space of a building on an occasional basis as approved by the department. The building must be approved by the local building department, environmental health, and fire marshal for that particular use. And the program must submit all approvals to the department when seeking approval for the use of the indoor space. So occasional use is defined as a use other than regular daily use, and includes but is not limited to use due to severely inclement weather conditions, emergency use due to hazards, and weather, and the need to shelter in place, or hang on here to move my taskbar over, or the need to shelter in place or other conditions that preclude normal outdoor program operations or meeting the biological needs of children and staff with indoor bathroom facilities. So when you're reviewing that definition, what comes to mind for you? And I want to open that up to conversation and your thoughts. Yes, Kendall.
Uh, I think it all sounds great. The only thing I was wondering about is like the space being approved by the department. Like, could you go into, it would have to still be like in like zoning, like it would fit all other like criteria of a indoor childcare center, correct?
Yeah, so you would need to go through the certain approvals, especially if you are using an inside inside facility for any purpose. You would need to have to go through the proper approvals.
Right. Okay. And then, but how are we defining the space outdoor, like the outdoor natural space? Like, how is the department gonna like, are there gonna be like guidelines for it to be approved, or like that second bullet point of the definition?
So yeah, so what our plans are currently is when we say the department, we mean licensing. So licensing will be doing pre-certification visits and be able to help navigate through those, any questions that you have prior to licensing. You still will need to get approvals though, most likely, land use agreements, different things like that. But licensing would be involved to help navigate through that. Does that help clarify things?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Yes, Rihanna.
I'm curious about the emphasis on only preschool through school age children. I do think it's a good place to start, but long term, I'd like to see a pathway where infants and toddlers can also participate in outdoor programs.
Yeah, so that's a very good point. Right now we are just focusing on preschool through school age because, as you pointed out, it's easier for us to get the rules moving forward if we focus on that. There's nothing saying that later down the road, in a few years or something like that, that we could not look at potentially expanding. But right now we are focusing solely on the preschool and school age children aspect. And Mackenzie?
Hi there. I had a quick question about just clarification about the outdoor natural space approved by the department. Is that for a specific location that would be approved but does not include field trip locations?
Correct.
That would be your base location. Okay. So then my follow-up question to that would be, what about nomadic programs that travel between different, like seasonally? We're not able to use a certain location until the water recedes, in the spring and fall, but in the winter, we're not able to go there. So how would nomadic programs be included in that?
That's a really good question. And I think that we will have to bring that up with our rulemaking group because I don't have an answer for you for that particular scenario. That's a really unique scenario.
Okay. It's very common throughout outdoor schools throughout the United States that there's nomadic programs. So that's why I bring it up, but also just personally. But another question is, when it comes to field trips, do you have to meet at that specific location before you leave there, or can you meet at, so if I say I want to certify property A, but I like to go to property C on Wednesdays for field trips, is that an okay model to have?
And I think we'll bring that back to our rulemaking group as well. And so when we are approached with questions like this, we want to make sure that we're getting a collective mindset, kind of to see how we could go ahead and change our definition to support that, to support what you are explaining. And so we will bring that back and come back the following on May 7th with more clarification to that.
Okay, thank you. I do want to give a little bit of feedback since I'm unmuted. I do love that this is flexible we are 100% outdoors. But when we first started, we were not. We rented a space at the Toledo Public Library. And so we had an indoor space for inclement weather. Now we have like a pass to the aquarium. We can go, to different field trips if we know that we need to be indoors for some reason, because we are nomadic overall, is how I would categorize this. But I do love that this is flexible so that it would be more inclusive. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. And Kendall Delk, you have your hand up? Since we have two Kendalls.
Yeah, we have two Kendalls. That never happens. Rachel had a comment in the chat or question in the chat. They were curious when and why a program would be considered outdoor nature-based versus simply a licensed facility if the indoor spaces must pass all of the standard licensing, inspections, etc. Did you want to address that one, or did you?
So Kendall, do you want to?
Sure. Rachel, the reason we have this definition and have been working with this definition is to make sure that there is a distinction between outdoor nature-based programs and traditional licensed childcare facilities that simply happen to spend time outside sometimes. The big features from this definition are the nature-based curriculum being emphasized as, there's a reason why I want my program to be occurring outdoors, because the nature-based curriculum is important to me in my program. And then also they're primarily in the outdoor natural space, would be using the indoor space to meet biological needs of staff and children, or for inclement weather, emergency shelter, etc. They would be considered to be primarily outdoors rather than that hybrid. And that's how we want to make sure that folks and providers who want to pursue the outdoor nature-based childcare know and that can understand the distinction, why they would choose to become licensed as outdoor nature-based versus a traditional indoor childcare facility. Does that help clarify, Rachel? Okay, she says yes.
Okay. And Sage, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think that having that clarification clearly that states like what an outdoor preschool is versus a regular indoor preschool is really important. Because, when I sent my daughter to an outdoor preschool, what it really consisted of was just sending them out to a playground for for the hours of the day and telling me they're providing outdoor education, which is not what I would think is outdoor education, or at least what I thought would be consisting of outdoor education. That's just not paying for a building and sending kids to a playground. And so I think making sure that that can't happen is really important.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. So if you're operating a program currently, whether it's a recorded it would be a recorded program if you were a center, or if you were doing a home-based program, if you are currently operating an outdoor program, do you utilize indoor space at all? And if so, for what reasons do you use the indoor space? And
Can I just Can I just jump in here to talk about that?
Sure.
One of the reasons we had to find an indoor space, well, honestly, almost every year for at least a couple days is because of the smoke. So I think that you have that already as emergency,
Mhm.
but my kids can handle rain. We've been out in the snow a bunch of times. But the smoke though, I mean, there's just nothing to be done when it's up over forget
Right.
like 200 parts per million or whatever.
Right, right. And that's being in Cave Junction, you get that. You've had that for like the last 3 years, probably.
Yeah, it feels like it's every year. At least we just check the air quality every morning, and then if it's really bad, then we have to find an indoor location. And I am interested in knowing that I don't want to get in trouble with my inspector because it was smoky and we had to find an emergency indoor location. So I would want, I mean, it looks like you already have that here, the way you wrote it, but I would want that to be included.
Definitely. Definitely. Kendall Sweeney? You're breaking up, Kendall. I'm sorry.
Indoor. Oh, can you hear me now?
It's better now. Yes.
Hello. Oh, okay. Yeah, so we have a 10-acre farm that we're based on, and we do have a yurt. And is our wood fire stove side. And so on the negative cold days, we can escape in there. If it gets snows, we can dry out gear, or if it's wet when it rains, obviously we can dry out gear. And then we do have a bathroom inside of a garage. It's a a regular indoor bathroom. And so they have a composting.
Kendall, you keep breaking in and out. I'm sorry. You might have to put in your comments in the chat just so we can make sure to capture what exactly you were saying. And
Ooh, sorry, I think I lost you.
yeah,
I don't know where
you're breaking in and out.
Mm.
So maybe it might be easier if you put your comments in the chat, and then Kendall from Delk can go ahead and read them.
That sounds great.
Okay, thanks. And Delk, Kendall.
Hello. We had some comments in the chat. I wanted to make sure we're on the record. Amy said that their recorded program is entirely outdoors. They do not have an indoor space. Rachel says they are a certified family facility. They spend 3 hours outdoors year round, but have licensed indoor space. And Joseph said they have a yurt as well.
So one other aspect that Delk Kendall mentioned, one of the defining features of an outdoor nature-based program is that it teaches a nature-based curriculum to enrolled children. So thoughts on how nature-based curriculum should be defined, and what elements would you suggest including into that definition?
While folks are thinking about that, Kendall had her comments in the chat in the previous question that they have a 10-acre farm. They have a canvas yurt with a wood stove if they need to escape, I'm presuming snow and rain, but it is not good for poor air quality. They do have an indoor bathroom available as well.
Thank you.
So I know, as far as curriculum goes, what we use a lot of is OSU's Project Wet, Project Wild, Project Aquatic, and Project Learning Tree. All of the books from that, and they have a ton of, and then we build our own curriculum based off of those books, which is pretty extensive. So I don't know if that would be a good base or something to start looking through. That's just some thoughts. I'm a trainer. I'm a master trainer as well, and I base a lot of trainings that I do on those books too, because they are such a good resource.
Okay, great. So Amy, I see your hand.
So our program is play-based and entirely emergent. So I would like to advocate for some room in the rules for an emergent nature-based curriculum, because so much of our learning at our program comes from the children's own discoveries while freely playing outside. We archers have also done the Project Wild curriculum and definitely incorporate some of that as it arises, but we don't have a set curriculum that we go off of. It's definitely seasonal, whatever's happening around our school site. And like I said, just whatever emerges in our days that the children's discovering.
Okay, okay. And Joseph, I think your hand is up.
Yeah, I would echo the previous comment. I do see the value of defining the term nature-based curriculum.
Mhm.
And I am in favor of saying that. I would, and we do a lot of things. My students know all the native animals that we're likely to see. They know the difference between a black oak and a white oak, you know. And so I'm in favor of that. I would be afraid if you got too specific. Like, for example, our inspector wants to come out and visit to take photos and learn about how, because she's helping write your rules too, I think, Renee Bresnay. And she wants to come out to learn about how we do things so she can include some of our ideas. And if you guys see us, memorizing the types of oaks that grow in our forest, I would not want the rules to say outdoor preschool students must learn the names of the oak trees. For example, I think that there should be space for emergent ideas and for the children to be able to help. These are very young children. And if children want to look at worms today, I think they should. And so I would encourage the group to use pretty vague language to define what exactly nature-based curriculum is. And I would definitely not be in favor of saying that you must use, Project Wild, for example. And I picked that example because I love Project Wild. I use it all the time. I love those trainings. But I wouldn't want to force, somebody to stick to some plan, because if the kids find an amazing new beetle, I think that they should study that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think our intention would be to dictate a certain curriculum, but we just want some guidelines so that we can differentiate between a nature-based program and a childcare program that just spends time outside. And so that's kind of what we are hoping to kind of focus on. But I love your comment, Joseph, about the flexibility. Same with yours, Amy. Just, that flexible type of learning. And so that's a really good piece of information for us to have. So Mackenzie?
Yeah, thank you. I agree with Amy and Joseph. Our curriculum I write, but it's very much based on play-based learning and emergent curriculum. things that I think that set us apart. And I also want to echo, and I'm so sorry, I forgot your name. I think it might be Sage, that shared that it's important to distinguish between outdoor curriculum versus, like you just said, versus a regular facility. That said, I think some things that around emergent curriculum that keeps it separate from other curriculums is that it's seasonal, that it's place-based learning, and it's built on discovery and curiosity, experiences that are hands-on outdoors, and exploration. Those are really key components, I think, of the emergent curriculum that set us apart from a regular traditional preschool. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. Delk Kendall?
We have some great comments in the chat. Mackenzie said that when they had an indoor space, they rarely used it, but it was helpful for teaching children how to cook, use the piano, have movie night, or do art that required a dry place. Kendall said that they would agree with adding seasonal elements, wilderness skills, leave no trace, etc. Amy said that they agree with having a vague description of nature-based curriculum. And Rachel says this is a huge topic. Like all early childhood educators, outdoor nature-based teachers use a wide variety of curricula and are informed by pedagogies ranging from unschooling to Montessori to Reggio to Waldorf, etc. Wouldn't this be similar to licensed facilities where there is no set curriculum requirement?
That is a great point, Rachel. And I think that ultimately that's our goal. We're not going to dictate the actual curriculum, but we just want elements in there so that we can make that different, the distinction. So Sage, it looks like your hand is up.
Yeah, sorry. I was just going to say that I think that you could look for programs or help them define it by whatever activities they want to offer, having a genuine connection to whatever environment they're in. Because that way, you know, you can do outdoor education in a city or anywhere. You can find elements of the environment everywhere. And as long as they're connecting whatever they're learning about to the environment at large in the outdoor space, then they are doing outdoor education, in my opinion. I mean, I don't know a ton about it, but that's what I would look for as a parent in finding outdoor education. And then that way, you know, it gives people that want to do it in a city maybe some ability to be an outdoor education facility as well.
Thank you. So Amy, your hand is still up, and I don't know if that's a new hand or an old hand. Okay, thank you. And Sage, I'm assuming that your hand is old as well, because you just gave us your comments. And Delk Kendall.
We had another comment from Kendall that says maybe the defining factors would be more of operating space, time required, time outdoors required, teachers with more certification, such as WFR or experiential education degrees.
Great feedback. And I just want to check in. Ronnie, have you been able to capture all the notes? Do you have any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you, Carol.
Okay, great. Well, if there are no other comments about this, oh, Rhonda?
I ultimately think too that it's really up to the parents to do their due diligence to investigate what curriculum is being presented, and they're the consumer, so they get to pick and choose what it is that's going on, and if they are not happy with it, then they can make a different choice.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. Okay. Well, I'm going to move us along. Okay. So we do want to touch on a couple policies, communication requirements, and notifications. And so when I initially sent out the information for this session, I also included a childcare center rule book. And so as I mentioned previously, we're kind of patterning a lot of our rule set off of the certified childcare rule set. So a couple questions when we were aligning the requirements, a couple questions did come up in our minds of how this could look in an outdoor nature-based program. So if an outdoor nature-based program is strictly outside, how will parents or guardians be notified of their child's location for alternate schedule arrangements, such as late arrival, early pickup? So some questions: what forms of communication do you use currently for people who are who have programs? If you rely on cell phones, do you ever have a concern about cell coverage or dropped calls? And are there any additional considerations for an outdoor environment? So Amy, it looks like you've got a thought.
Yeah, so for communication, we utilize an app that we pay for and is free for our families. And there is a way to send urgent announcements where it goes directly to their notifications, and we can just type in one message and it sends to everyone. If there is, inclement weather and we need to get an early pickup or a late start. So we do that as well as a group text. And we also, as far as cell coverage, we're really close to town, so we don't have an issue with that.
Are-
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So are there any programs where cell coverage is a little spotty? And if so, how do you deal with that? Anyone on the call here? Mackenzie?
Great question. We treat it as if it's a field trip. So oftentimes schools take field trips in a variety of areas. And so we have very specific drop off and pickup times that we let parents know via email ahead of time. If cell phones, if there's limited cell phone coverage, we let parents know ahead of time that area is limited. We in the past we had considered using like a radio where we had, because we have radios that we carry so that if for some reason our teachers are separated, we can communicate if there's low cell phone service in that area. And then we would have the ability to combine groups and have a teacher run back. This is what our policy says. We never had to use it, but our policy says a teacher would be able to run back to the meeting location and be able to have the radio communication. We use text that tends to work really well. And then there's a variety of apps and emails out there, like the Remind app, for example, can do a group text without having to have parents okay sharing phone numbers. So yeah.
Great. Kendall.
Just reading from the chat, Rachel says that they use group text to inform parents of any changes from their normal schedule. And Joseph said in response to the last question on this slide that they do not anticipate children arriving without an adult.
Okay. Joseph, you're jumping ahead. There's always got to be one in every work group. You're fine, thanks. So it sounds to me, just based on the first question, that apps are used. There is not too much of a concern about cell phones dropping calls. So that's a good thing. And it doesn't sound like there are too many other additional considerations for an outdoor-based environment dealing with the cell phones and coverage and things like that. So Joseph, do you have another question or comment?
Yeah, there is one place in the Illinois Valley near Cave Junction where we do occasionally go called Grayback Campground.
Mm-hmm.
And Grayback Campground has no cell phone service at all. In the past, other locations might have spotty cell phone service, but I can still get a text through if I give time, if I give like a half hour, eventually it finds a way to get through. But at Grayback Campground, there is no service. So what I always do, and we don't go there very often, maybe 2-3 times a year. What I always do is at about 7 a.m. or 7:30 in the morning, I send every family a message saying, reminder, we are at Grayback Campground. There is no cell phone service there. And then I have emergency paperwork saying what to do. And I do have transportation agreements signed. And I do have a contingency. I've never had to use it though. There always is it always works out because people have their emergency contacts. So usually the family just calls their cousin or their grandparents that are on the emergency contacts, and then they just come and get the kid at 1 o'clock. And I don't have to call. But the contingency we have though is we have an office in Cave Junction with a little wooden fenced area with a grassy area. And if the parents are not there by 1:15, that's what we wrote, that we're going to take the kid to the office.
Okay.
And we do have transportation agreements signed with the families, but I've never had to use that though. It always ended up working out, so I never actually had to use that contingency.
Okay. How long, so do you mind me asking, how long have you been operating your preschool?
7 years.
7 years, okay. So, oh, Kendall?
Some comments in the chat. Rachel says, we do not serve school-age children. Typically, our outdoor locations function as our classrooms. It's much the same as a traditional classroom, but without walls. The parents know the schedule, where we are throughout the day, and our pickup and drop-off times. And Kendall says maybe a Garmin emergency communicator could be used. So Joseph, like those areas that have absolutely zero cell phone service, emergency communication, I believe this is in response to that. If you needed emergency medical response, perhaps, hopefully that never happens, but you can pre-program numbers and send one message. Of course, I think a waiver would be helpful, having the parents acknowledge the program might not be reachable by cell. And that is everything in the chat at the moment, I believe.
So just so that we make sure that everybody's had an opportunity to weigh in about any special considerations for school-age children who may arrive or leave an outdoor nature-based program without a parent or guardian. Do you anticipate that being a thing for programs? I think about programs that may be operating in a park, in a neighborhood park or something like that, where potentially school-age children could come after school, arrive and depart. But I know in traditional licensing that happens, but I was just wondering if it happened in, if you would anticipate that happening in an outdoor nature-based program as well. And Amy? If you're talking, Amy, you're on mute.
Oh, thank you. So we currently offer after school programs for kids 5 to 12 in town, but on like a 3-acre kind of wooded lot. And thus far, we haven't had any children coming to us unaccompanied, but we do have a policy that if there is pre-approval and a discussion between the program director and the families, that we would be okay with that.
Okay.
But it's a case-by-case basis.
So when you say okay with that, do you mean a kiddo arriving unaccompanied by by an adult, without an adult?
Yes, because one of our after-school programs takes place very close, within walking distance to the school campus.
Okay.
So if it, and we simply made that just to increase accessibility to our programs, because we're in a really small, low income rural community, and many of our program participants, families, both parents work, or, we have lots of single parent households too. So just to increase accessibility, we've actually discussed that and have decided that with pre-approval, we would allow it.
Okay. So would that kind of be patterned after, at a traditional childcare center where it's the arrival time, departure time, and then if the child is not there, you start emergency procedures in terms of trying to locate the child? Is that kind of what your process would be?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, great. Anyone else have any input on this? Okay. So moving us along. So the current rules for certified childcare centers do require certain items be posted and easily visible. So the items that need to be posted are the license, planned field trips showing the date, times, and place of each excursion. When there's a restrictable disease, hand washing procedures, and any serious complaints or serious non-compliance letters, or any current or pending legal action or sanctions. Additionally, the center rules also require that each classroom have certain postings in the classroom. So such as emergency numbers, 911, local law enforcement, fire department, emergency evacuation and relocation diagram, classroom schedule and activity plan, menu and children's dietary restrictions and allergies, and applicable ratios and group size. So we are wondering if you currently have program information displayed, how does that look? And how could it look in a strictly outdoor environment? Amy?
So we have all of those things printed out, laminated, hole punched, and in a notebook.
Okay.
And each of our program directors has their own notebook. And so that in the case of a substitute, the substitute then gets passed the notebook so that they have all of that information on hand.
Great. And Joseph did, okay.
Yeah, I took it down because I was gonna say the same thing. We have a note, we have a binder.
Binder?
We use, I don't use lamination because sometimes we have to change it. So we have sleeves with
Okay.
these plastic sleeves. Like this.
Okay. Great.
And then we just put that in the binder. And we used to go to public parks more often. Now we actually own our own little 1-acre property. So, but still, if all you got is a backpack or maybe a backpack and a wagon, it is really nice to have a binder that has all of the things the parents need to see. We can keep attendance in it. We can keep the rules in it, and all that same stuff that she said. So I think I love the idea of every staff member having a binder. I never thought of that one before. So maybe that's something we should start doing.
And Kendall,
Okay, so some input in the chat. Mackenzie said, I can see how we would use that option once we are able to operate full day. I believe that is in response to the children, school-age children arriving without an adult check-in procedure type conversation. Rebecca was asking for this discussion, what has worked for others so far? Laminated in cardstock seems to be sturdier. Rachel says, when we were entirely outdoors for 2 years in the pandemic, we kept all of these documents in a binder located in a tote with our first aid supplies, etc. And Kendall said, if we have it laminated at our check-in desk and a binder that comes in our teacher backpack with first aid, etc.
okay. And so Mackenzie,
Yeah, I'm concerned about all of the amount of gear that we need to carry when we go on, a mile or two hike. Especially once we become full days, we could go potentially several miles in a day. So carrying a binder, I don't see that as really, I see that as a really large burden. So what we did in the past, because we have to have the certificate for being a recorded program, we just carry that in the car with us and we have an electronic copy. But I would like to see us move towards, if it's possible, to online forms, for example, so that every parent gets a copy when they first enroll their child, and then they have an online, maybe Google folder or whatever, app you want to use, and that it has all of that with your handbook that each family has an electronic copy of as well. So that, because honestly, we're such a digital society, at least for our parents, that I don't think they would ever ask for a handwritten letter. I think, or a printed letter. I think they would want to just have an electronic copy. And maybe something that we, like a tote that we keep in our vehicle. I do carry our emergency contacts and things like that in my cell phone, but also in a paper copy as well, in case the battery dies or it gets broken for some reason. I do feel that's important, but keeping a license on me, that seems like that's more of an electronic thing. Or yeah, QR code. I love that idea too. Posting emergency numbers. I just don't see where I would post that. When we were indoors at the Toledo Public Library, we had a binder and we had things posted on the walls, but without walls, it's tricky, and no one's looking in my vehicle for those things. So it seems odd to have it in there anyway.
is there ever a situation where potentially parents would not have internet access or may have limited accessibility to internet, so that I don't know if that could be a thing?
Oh,
Or
of
not?
course. And there's some people that aren't going to be tech savvy and those kind of things. And so I think I like making sure everyone has a hand copy as well when they first, sign up, I think is important. And if you had a base, it makes sense to have those papers on hand, as well as electronic copies. I just don't see me carrying a giant notebook. I think that would make our jobs very challenging.
And Kendall,
Some more notes from the chat. QR code might be helpful for them to access the information. I think they're referring to families. But yes, as most of us focus on sustainability, it would be nice to see it go a more digital route. And then Amy says our staff binder has emergency numbers, emergency plan, and children's medical information and emergency contact information. Everything else is listed in our parent handbook online.
Okay. And so Sage, I'm just wondering from a parent perspective, how would you like to see information relayed? If you would be willing to share your thoughts on that, that would be great.
Sure. Well, I think that like handing it out when people initially sign up would be helpful. And then I guess the QR code would be okay. I just feel like people never really remember those. So having it in paper would be great. I mean, people are saying it's heavy to carry and hard to carry around. So is there a way to like shrink it down, have it like wallet size so people could put it in their wallet or carry it in a smaller format? Does it have to be like so big, or is it just so that they have it so it can be checked? I'm wondering. But as far as like seeing as a parent, yeah, like getting it on sign up, that would be good. And then if there's like a common drop off pickup place, it could be like hung on a tree or whatever is in that common pickup zone area. That would work. I mean, I imagine there's like a place kids put down their like lunches at most of these programs, things like that. So posting it there and like just leaving the binder there and picking it up. Like there's usually a sign in, like there's a sign in, sign out sheet usually. Maybe the binder could be put in that place.
Okay. That's great feedback. Joseph.
So this is our binder. We got the soft kind and it's weatherproof. So when it rains, this is my backpack here. And this fits in it pretty easily. We just have got the lead test, got all our background checks, our ERDC approval. I even got the fire inspector to come by. And it's hard to do that in a public park. We actually own a 1 acre property. This paper, this is a very important piece of paper. And my phone dies sometimes. Any parent who wants to see this has a right to see this piece of paper immediately. There's no reason to delay. A state law, parent wants to see this piece of paper, I have to produce it immediately. That's my understanding of state law. We got all of our attendance in here. I would like to improve my binder actually, so it could be more like a childcare license. But all of our enrollment papers are all in paper copy, and I do have digital copies of it too, but it's really handy to have this paper copy of it. Visitor log, it's all here. All of our background checks are sitting right here. Any parent wants to see if I have a volunteer or a staff person and I get a parent that comes by, wants to see their background check, I am required by state law to show that background check immediately. That maybe I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's state law. It's not heavy, and I like the cloth. It fits in my backpack really nice.
It's a good option. Rhonda?
I like that as well, Joseph, because if you are out, see, we're on a 30 or 28 acre parcel, and heaven forbid anything did happen, which it never has. But if you have to call 911 and send, part of your group with a teacher to flag them into where you are, you have a child that's hurt or something, you need to have all of those parent contact information and their emergency numbers and all of those releases for emergency personnel to have access to immediately.
So it sounds like either binders or digital. Those are the two main options that people are currently using. So we'll be able to take that information back and discuss it with the rulemaking group and see what options we can come up with. Yes, Kendall.
All right, comments from the chat. Rachel says they have a very similar setup, Joseph, soft binder and a big hiking backpack. Mackenzie says, our students carry their own gear, possible compromise, be possible for the binder to stay at the meeting spot?
Good suggestion. Yeah. So I'm going to move us forward here. So, current child care center rules do require immediate notification for various scenarios. Do any concerns come to mind when you see the word immediate? So examples of when parents must be immediately notified are if a child becomes ill while in care. And a follow-up question to that too is how will they be separated from other children until their parents or emergency contacts arrive? Some other examples of the immediate notifications: a child who is lost, missing, or left alone. A child who sustains an injury that may need evaluation by a physician or any impact to a child's head. Has experienced any suspected allergic reaction, is bitten by an animal that could be including insects and needs to be evaluated by a physician, received emergency medication for life-threatening conditions such as an EpiPen. So are there any concerns that come to mind about how you could immediately notify parents or guardians in these situations? Kendall?
Rachel. Okay, so for separation, Joseph says, I think it is easier to separate a child in the outdoors. There's way more space. Rachel says, being outdoors provides ample space for separation. We use cell phones just like indoor programs. Joseph says, we usually have cell phone service, so I just call the parent. And Rachel says, separation of an ill child, that is. So clarification for if you need to separate an ill child, you're outside where there's lots of space.
Yeah.
And then Amy says, I agree with the others. It's easy to separate outside, and we just call the parent on our cell phone.
Okay. Can you guys think of any other additional considerations for outdoor environment that could there potentially be programs that couldn't meet the immediate requirement? And if so, would there be any alternate solutions to that you can think of? Yes, Amy.
So our program also runs summer camps and in pretty remote areas where we don't have cell reception. And in that case, we have one satellite phone that we all use, and we have walkie-talkies so that program directors can communicate with each other if we're spread out. And one of us always has the sat phone. And we have had to use it. But like someone mentioned earlier, you can just pre-program numbers in it. But that's when the binder came in handy, was because we all have emergency contact info and medical information of every child at camp, even if they're not in our specific cohort. So when remote, the satellite phone is coming very handy for us.
Do you mind me asking, are satellite phones fairly expensive, or are they reasonably priced? What is
For a good quality one, ours was about $350. It's mid-grade, decent quality.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So can any of you think of any other scenarios that would require immediate parent notifications than just what we have, what I've listed on this slide? Anything jump out at you?
We've had a cougar.
Well, there you go.
Luckily, we have an indoor outdoor program and had literally just come in and one of the teachers saw it. So, but we have
Wow.
lots of wildlife, but we were in immediately. There's another program that's in our facility as well. We notified them and we called Fish and Game. They immediately sent out a tracker.
Okay. And we'll be doing emergency preparedness at a later date, and wildlife concerns will be something we'll discuss.
Oh, I am going to say one other time several years ago, we actually did have a sheriff come flying up, and there was a fugitive there had been a murder in our area. There was a fugitive, and they thought that there was a chance he was running across the back of our property. So we had to go in and shelter in place, immediately lock down too. So that's not necessarily indicative of an outdoor program, but because if you are out in the wilderness, you could run into homelessness. You could run into people with drugs. There's all kinds of that type of nefarious things that you could encounter.
Correct. That's why it's important to have those policies in place. Amy, do you have your hand raised again, or is that an old hand? Sage?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing as Rhonda, pretty much that when my daughter was in the outdoor preschool, it was in like a public setting. And I attended with her, but often they'd get approached by adults that wanted to interact with kids because they're cute and fun, and you can get strange adults that want to interact with kids. So I would appreciate as a parent being notified when that's occurring.
Definitely. And Kendall.
Okay, from the chat, excuse me. Kendall says, cell phone with emergency contact list. We have a small blanket in our backpack we can put down for that child to rest on while they are being separated. Question, do you have to pay for a monthly plan with a satellite phone? I don't know the answer to that one. So if anybody knows. Amy says, inclement weather and no access to indoor space. Rebecca says, encounter with native wildlife. I think that is echoing the mountain lion situation. And then Rachel says, we encounter individuals who are engaging in unsafe or unhealthy behavior. Typically, we leave the area and let the parents know as soon as we are in a safe space.
Hey, and Sage, is that a new hand or an existing hand or an old hand?
Sorry, old hand, I'm bad at Zoom.
Okay, you're totally fine. Okay. So we are at a 5-minute break. So if you all want to take a little brain break, little stretch, we have 5 more slides to get through. And we have a little over a half an hour left. So if you all want to come back and take just a 5-minute stretch, come back a little before 7, we will continue and get you out of here at 7:30. Okay. Hopefully people got up and were able to stretch and get a little movement going. So we're going to continue on. And we're going to continue with program records. So the center rules do require that a certified childcare center maintain records for 2 years. And we have covered this a lot in terms of previous slides. And so with thinking of our past conversations, are there any other ways that you would store the following records other than digitally, in a binder, in a backpack, or possibly at the drop-off location? Or does that capture everything, you think, all the scenarios? Kendall?
Mackenzie says digital.
Hey.
And then, not in response to this question, but Joseph put in the chat that the opportunity to use Oregon public parks is very important to them. These are some of the most beautiful parks in the world. I hope the dangers of wild animals, strangers, and hazardous landscapes are balanced with the value of experiencing these places at a young age.
Well stated. So in terms of program records, any particular considerations that we have to be thinking about for an outdoor environment, other than the ones that we have already mentioned? Okay. How about, so how allergies are documented and allergy plans are maintained? Are there any considerations with people being able to access that information, having the information remain confidential for the child and the parent only's eyes? Anything that comes to mind when you think about program records in terms of allergies and allergy plans? Kendall?
The only thing that comes into mind is storing medication for those children due to having a certain, like they have to be stored at a certain temperature sometimes. And so that has come into play sometimes, like we offer summer camps, and EpiPens do have to be at a certain temperature. And if it's like 110-degree day, it is very hard to keep it at 65 or 75 degree, like room temperature. So that is something to take into consideration.
And how have you stored medication before? I mean, how do you do that when you, like you were mentioning, a hot day and the temperature requirement?
In that case, we honestly said that we weren't comfortable having the child and we refunded them for the summer camp. It hasn't been an issue during the school year. We do have access to indoor spaces where we are, since we're place-based. And so we also have like a shed that can have we have a locked cabinet in there. So we can keep like medication in there as well. If it's not temperature based.
Okay. Sage?
Yeah, I guess like not to be like super personal, but like my daughter does have serious food allergies, and So one of the things that led me to like take her out of the outdoor preschool and put her into a Head Start program was the fact that I felt that they could handle the allergy and take it really seriously in that environment. But it further speaks to this issue of how is this going to be done, because inclusion is important. Children should be allowed to come to outdoor education, even if they have a serious allergy, even if they have a disability. Like the outdoors is for everyone, not just some kids, not just like some of them. So I'd like to hear how people are going to be integrated that have allergies or disabilities into outdoor spaces and into these programs.
Does anybody have any response to Sage in terms of how you have handled especially allergies, severe allergies, and allergy care plans? Kendall, I don't know if your hand is. No, Kendall.
It's to respond. Currently, I take 20 children a day, and I do have 5 students that have severe allergies, and we've so far kept them very safe. They typically we do like lunch on or snack at a regular table, which we can sanitize before and after meals. We also, all the teachers are very aware of which students are allergic to certain things, and we just make sure there's, ample space between them and other students when they're at a table. But, not in a secluded way, just, you just kind of eye it up and make sure that they're there. But just that would happen in a regular center as well. And then we just continue with hand washing before and after we eat. And that way, if they go on to touch the same swing handle, if they go on to, if they go on to touch the same sticks or whatever, they're flipping the same rock, the allergens aren't being transferred. And yeah, I think, just like any other indoor facility, like I said, storing their medication at the correct temperature and making sure that everyone is aware of where it is, where it's locked up. And, you have to follow certain like guidelines as an indoor center. And so I have found ways that you can kind of branch it. I do think that would be hard if you were completely nomadic. Or if you were, maybe it could be, or if you're just using picnic blankets or something to eat on. But also I know a lot of like schools are successful doing that across the country, and maybe just having like stump spots for lunch or something like that, where every child is spread out at least, 6 feet from each other. But it's kind of also their time to just kind of self-reflect, but also eat as well. But keeping everyone safe.
And Kendall.
Yeah, just from the chat, in regards to maintaining records, I believe the comment here says teachers would keep printed records at home, just like at licensed facilities. Our binder is marked boldly confidential for staff use only. That's my all caps voice. We cannot serve some children who need refrigerated medication. We have last year we had a child with a severe peanut allergy. We simply asked families to refrain from sending food with peanuts. Training with all staff, review with parents and teachers as allergies and medications are updated. We have used allergy care plans. The only health issue we've had to decline, mutually agreed upon with the parent, was a child who needed injection of a refrigerated medication. And then it is also noted in the emergency contact paperwork that we carried in our backpacks marked confidential.
Those are great options. Rhonda, I see your hand up.
So we've kind of done the same thing. We've had kids with some severe food allergies, and it's a matter of keeping them separate from the other kids, just distance between them, and everybody packs their own lunch and asking other families to be respectful of what the allergies are and whatnot. It can get a little tricky too, because especially if you're using places like public, like our national forests and our parks and stuff where that other people are frequenting when we're not there. You don't know who sat at the table or picked up a stick or done whatever. So just being super cautious and aware of that child and where they are and what they're touching, just that hypervigilance, but also children that are on the spectrum too. And you have some children that can be nonverbal, children that are wanderers and things like that. So what we've done when we've had one student that was like that, we really just do a one-on-one teacher with them. We also have them have several of the kids wear very bright colored vests so that, we're constantly counting. We have 10 kids to 2 teachers, but we're still constantly counting. And we don't just single out that one child has to wear a vest every day. We have 5 vests and half the kids wear them and half the kids don't. We make certain that he does wear one every day and that he's always holding a hand of a teacher if we're outside of the specific designated area that they can't get out of. So that kind of a thing, you have to have systems in place. And then also if there's any fear of that, would be a tracking device in their clothes. I can't remember what they're called, but they put them on everything these days. And you can sew them in their clothes. You can put a little, they're like an air tag, I think maybe they're called.
Yeah.
And then you can track, there's an app for that and you can track, and you could even, I suppose you can even do that for every child if you had any kind of concern about something like that. That's just something I've heard of.
No, great. Delk Kendall.
I think I just neglected to lower my hand. I apologize.
Okay then. Oh, that's totally fine. So we're actually getting near the end. We've got only a couple more slides left. Since many outdoor nature-based programs operate outside, business address may not be very beneficial to know as a physical location. So should physical location be added to this, to the program policies? And if so, how would this be determined? And thinking in terms of outside specific programs, nomadic programs, programs where you may just come to one general meeting area and then disperse out. How could that look in an outdoor nature-based program? Do you have any suggestions on wording the requirement that would make the most logical sense? Mackenzie.
I'm so sorry. It's getting late and it's been a long day. Can you restate what you're asking? Like, is this for parents or is this for
Yes.
Delk?
So certified childcare center rules, the programs the rules state that programs must provide written information to parents, staff, and volunteers. And
Okay.
one of the requirements, name, business address, and business telephone number. However, with an outside only program, should we include physical location into this requirement?
Yes, I think that's a really great idea. So, yes, of course, their parents should always know where their kids are at. That's their most valuable person. And so they should definitely know where their kids are at all times. So for us, we email to make sure that parents know where their children are at. If we are in between spaces, sometimes we use like sharing services. So for example, I transport 2 kids and regularly, and I just share my transportation, with our iPhones. So I think, yeah, definitely locations is important.
Okay. And so, how would you recommend physical location be determined? I mean, you think about, thinking about programs that may operate on, in a forest, how would that be determined for parents, staff, and volunteers? How would you go ahead and list that?
So
And you-
for us, because we're emergent curriculum, we can be at a trailhead and then we can take multiple different directions from that trailhead. So having our cell phones listed, including every teacher, that's how we do it. That might not be practical for everyone, but that is something that we do, that we have the mark, the mark of the trailhead. And then from there, we know that this is the boundary in which we will be at. We're not going to cross over and go into a different area. We're going to be in this area, but we could be down at the beach or in the forest or at the wetland. And that they know where we're at within a certain boundary, but then be able to get exact specifics with a telephone number, quick call or text.
And so how would that information be relayed to like emergency personnel? You have an emergency, how would you go about in relay? Same process, you just would call?
Yeah,
and
if there's an emergency, I would say, like, for example, if we're at Driftwood Beach, I would say we're at Driftwood State Park. We're at Beach Access 66C. And we are down in, at the beach, to the north of the parking lot or to the south of the parking lot. So giving, directions would be really helpful.
Right. And Delk Kendall.
Updates from the chat. Joseph asked, can we have a home base with field trips? Amy says, yes, but use verbiage to account for nomadic programs in that physical location. Rachel says, I wonder if it makes the most sense to use the address or addresses of your primary outdoor location. The form for recorded programs allows you to state your home address as the provider and also the physical address where outdoor care takes place. Joseph says, we were able to list our local park as an address for our recorded program. And Rachel says, share your location or drop a pin in an emergency.
Great. Those are awesome ideas. And when you have, so moving on to the arrival departure procedures, do you have any special considerations for outdoor nature-based? Listening to past comments, it seems that you all have a very solid process for how you operate, but thinking about new programs coming on, what would be some special considerations for OMB programs when it comes to arrival and departure procedures when kiddos get dropped off and picked up? Kendall.
I think a big one that we have figured out is that obviously parents kind of trickle in and for both, pick up and drop off. And so we have a designated 45-minute window where they can arrive, where we will be in a certain designated area. And then after that, we will be moving on and doing, the rest of our day. Whether, and so if they are going to be running late, they can text us and we can let them know our new location when they're arriving. Or if we do have the staffing at that time, we can send one teacher over and get the child. But I do think that that's something to take into consideration, is having just remembering, for new people, just remembering that not everyone can arrive right at 8 a.m. or right at 9 a.m. And so having some type of meeting area for quite a while before you move on is good.
Okay. And do other programs, is that kind of what you guys, everybody pretty much does? Delp Kendall?
Notes from the chat. Rachel says, no special considerations. We use an attendance clipboard with daily attendance sheets where parents sign in and out, just like indoor programs. And Amy says, our programs are similar to Kendall's. We give at least a half-hour window for drop-off before we head out on adventures.
Great. Want to move us forward?
Oh, before that, Mackenzie put in the chat just now, we have a designated window, 5 minutes at drop-off and 10 minutes at pickup at a designated locations. If parents are late, they text.
Okay, awesome. So, certified childcare center rules do require programs provide written information to parents, staff, and volunteers. So this is a carryover from the previous slide. Do your policies cover items that parents or guardians must provide, such as like extra clothing, food, insect repellent, sleeping equipment, and sleeping bags? And then outside of that, what other policies are you providing to families? And then do your policies explain the nature-based approach or nature-based curriculum? And are there any other specific items that you would suggest adding in rule that are maybe outside of the typical childcare environment of what people normally provide? Or does this capture basically what you all suggest that parents provide? Yes, Amy.
So our families for all of our programs have to sign a liability waiver where it's 2 pages where we clearly outline unpredictable and dangerous environmental conditions and hazards. I won't read it all, but I have it pulled up, but and it covers that heat or sun related injuries and illnesses, animals, including bears, dogs, snakes, etc., poisonous animals, irritating sticky bushes and plants, including active or abandoned wells or shafts. So we've already kind of outlined in our liability waiver an assumption of risk and indemnity form that every family signs when they register their kids for our programs.
Okay.
And then, of course, we have policies in place for all of those risks as well.
Mm-hmm. And so you kind of fold those in together is what it sounds like.
Yes.
Okay. And Delk Kendall.
Right. Oh, you guys keep adding to the chat so things move. Okay, so yes, the parent handbook explains the responsibilities of family and explains the pedagogy. Yes, our handbook states our policies and states what's required to bring daily. As a 5-star QRIS program, we have all of those policies. We ask for sun hats, rain gear, etc. There is an extensive dress list depending on the season. Joseph says students bring a backpack with lunch, change of clothes, and water bottle. They must check the weather every day and pack accordingly. Rhonda says covers our philosophy, mission, vision, emergency procedures. Parents provide water bottles, appropriate clothing, sunscreen. And Joseph says we have extra clothes and blankets we keep in our vehicle or our shed.
Okay. So are there specific items that in this, so basically what I'd love for you guys to be pondering in between the break of this meeting and our next is what other specific items would you suggest that we actually place in rule that parents need to provide? Just so that, again, for new programs coming on, they have a general understanding of what parents should be providing. And then it sounds like with the more risky play, such as climbing natural features, using sharp tools, campfire activities, it sounds like you all have policies for those types of activities as well. And so some of that information will carry over into kind of some of the emergency preparedness as well. But we're kind of wondering, what safety measures or policies do you have in place to allow for risky play activities? Do you explain, do you train the children? Do you have a process? What kind of activities do you go ahead and participate in that may be considered risky? And how do you take certain precautions to make sure that children are safe in doing those? Yes, Kendall.
Other Kendall says very detailed lessons, permission from parents, and lots of supervision.
Okay. And does anybody do anything different than that?
We have a comment, tree climbing, always with an adult spotter. For climbing, we do not lift children into high spaces. If they can climb there, we allow it. We teach tree climbing safety.
Hey. So it sounds like you all have policies in place and you are actively working on those policies too, with incorporating different items, different things as they come forward. So for any of you that, oh yes, Kendall.
Sorry, we had some other additions to the chat about risky play.
Nice.
For sharp tool use, we have a policy and training for the kids. For berry eating, they're trained and ask teachers before each taste, even if it is a regular bush that they eat from, and they also teach water safety.
So I'm wondering, would any of you be willing to email me some of your just policies so that I could just review them really quickly and go ahead and present some of the information to the rulemaking group? Your name will not be included. It will be just a general conclusion of the different policies that have been sent in. And that may help guide kind of our work when we're looking at developing rules around risky play and what sort of policies maybe they could look like. So if you're willing to go ahead and share that, like I said, all the information will be confidential. Your name will not be attached, but it'll just give us a general idea of what some of those risky play procedures and policies look like. And one other request I have too is for any of you that currently operate an outdoor nature-based program and would be willing to allow us to meet you virtually at your site, please email me and let me know because we're interested in seeing an outdoor nature-based program in operation. And Joseph, I know that you said that Renee reached out to you, but I do want to extend it to everybody if anybody is interested in having us virtually tap in, see what you do. We would love to see your program just so that it helps us as we're developing the rules. So please email me, and my email address will be coming up at the next slide, and then we can go ahead and we'll make contact with you if that's something that you would be interested in doing, and we would work around your schedule. So we're at the next steps. I really want to thank you all for your time and your expertise. You've provided us so many great thoughts and a lot of feedback. So what we're going to do is review your comments and suggestions that we received today. We're going to develop proposed rule language incorporating the suggestions when possible. And we'll present the proposed language at the next rule group meeting, which is May 7th at 5:30 to 7:30. And the agenda and the topic discussion will be sent out prior to the May 7th meeting. So on behalf of the entire CCLD OMB rulemaking team, we want to thank you so much for your time and feedback on these topics. And we look forward to meeting with you again on May 7th. If you have any additional questions, please pop them in the chat right now or come off mute and ask, and we will answer those. Otherwise, you're free to end the meeting, to leave. Like everybody is leaving, so I am going to stop the live stream and cut the meeting off. Okay.